Joining us now are two of our CBS News political analysts, former Bush advisor Dan Bartlett in Austin, Texas, and Democratic strategist Jamal Simmons in Washington. Good morning to you both.
Morning, Harry.
Jamal, let me start with you. If the election were held district by district, who prevails? And if the election were a referendum on the president, who prevails?
I think if it's held district by district, Democrats have a fighting chance. If it's a referendum on how the White House has been communicating or how Democrats have been communicating over the last 2 years, I think Democrats would have a tougher night. That's what's so interesting about these polling numbers. People look at these generic polls, but if I'm running a campaign in Madison, Wisconsin, I care a lot more about how my candidate is doing versus their candidate than I care about what the national mood seems to look like.
And Dan Bartlett, is this election going to be a referendum on the president?
Well, history tells you it is, Harry, that every time a young president in his first term has a midterm election, it always becomes a referendum on that president. And with the numbers that we're seeing both across the country on the economy, his personal approval rating being well below 50% now, this is a real challenge for the Democrats, and having the big guns go out across the country is an interesting strategy because many of these Democrats in these swing states and other districts want to run as far away as possible from this president.
But Harry, here's the difference. The difference is the poll that Nancy just showed is one that showed Republicans in Congress versus President Obama. But if you look at that same poll and you look at Republicans in Congress versus Democrats in Congress, the Democrats in Congress beat the Republicans by 4 points. So what's starting to happen now, which wasn't happening most of the year, is that Democrats are starting to advertise. That's the difference. So Republicans have been communicating in a vacuum for most of the year. Now you've got Democrats engaged, and I think voters are going to be educated about the difference.
So Jamal, then you're ready to predict that the Republicans will not take control of Congress in 5 weeks?
Absolutely. I think, look, it's going to be a tough night for Democrats. We're going to lose scores of seats. But whether or not that means we lose the House of Representatives, I think we're far, far away from knowing that.
What?
If we could take a poll 2 months out that said what was going to happen on Election Day, and we'd know there'd be no reason to run the campaign.
It is an eternity, after all. Dan Bartlett, do you think the Republicans win control of the House?
I do. I think that while many Republicans had hoped that the election were this week or maybe next week,
that was my next question.
The fundamentals of this campaign and what got us to this place, what got this president and the Democrats in Congress to this place, aren't going to change. Whether it be the economic outlook, the right track, wrong track, the president's approval rating, these are all very important signals or gauges for us to look at. And right now, and I don't see him changing that fundamentally. So I believe we will see the House of Representatives flip. I think it's much closer in the Senate. But right now, Republicans, as long as they play a smart campaign, be very disciplined down the stretch of this campaign, this should be a good night for the Republicans in the House.
Very good. Jamal Simmons and Dan Bartlett, thank you both very much for being with us this morning. Very insightful. Appreciate it. All right.